65 years of life taught me countless lessons about love, friendship, and loyalty. But it only took one betrayal to shatter everything I believed in. People say time heals all wounds, but some scars cut too deep. I thought I knew the world, until the day I discovered how far deception can reach. What happened to me could happen to anyone, and by the end of my story you'll understand why I'll never trust anyone again. My name is Walter Hayes, and this is the story of the day I lost everything, and the battle I waged to reclaim even a shred of my dignity. Hi everyone, welcome to the Story Sphere. Today I am excited to share a new video with you. I still remember that crisp autumn morning when I decided it was time to retire. For over 40 years I had poured my heart and soul into Hayes Industries, a company I built from nothing into a thriving legacy. It wasn't merely a business, it was the embodiment of every lesson learned about perseverance, loyalty, and hope. On that day, I chose to pass the reins to the person I trusted more than anyone, my longtime friend and business partner, Daniel Scott. Daniel and I met in college, two underdogs determined to change our stars. Through sleepless nights, shared hardships, and hard-won triumphs, we forged a bond that I believed would last a lifetime. When his wife died unexpectedly, I was there to help him through his darkest hours. And when my only daughter, Emily, ventured overseas to chase her dreams, Daniel's steady presence reassured me that I wasn't alone. To me, Daniel was not just a partner, he was family. At my retirement celebration, Daniel presented a transition plan that, he claimed, would secure the company's future. I trusted him implicitly. Without a second thought, I signed the stack of documents he placed before me, a decision that would soon prove to be my undoing. A week later, I strode into the familiar lobby of Hayes Industries, only to be met with a sight I could hardly believe. The grand glass doors were locked, and a uniformed guard blocked my entry. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed in," he said, in a tone devoid of emotion. My heart pounded as I demanded an explanation. Moments later, Daniel appeared, his once friendly smile replaced by a cold, calculated look. He led me to his sleek modern office, a place that had once been our collaborative haven. There, on his polished desk, lay a thick folder. Trembling, I opened it to find my signature on every page, confirming the transfer of all my shares, assets, and rights to him. "Daniel, what is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper as I stared at the document in disbelief. Daniel's eyes, once warm and inviting, now burned with an emotion I couldn't quite name. "Walter, it's time for a change," he said flatly. "The board has decided that your era is over. I now control Hayes Industries, your work, your legacy, and your future." In that moment, the world as I knew it crumbled. The betrayal was absolute. My life's work, the trust I had placed in a friend, all swept away by a single stroke of a pen. "You tricked me," I managed to choke out, the agony of disbelief and hurt echoing in my voice. "It's just business, Walter," Daniel replied, his tone devoid of any remorse. In this world, loyalty is a luxury, and I couldn't afford to be sentimental. For months following that fateful day, I wandered through the ruins of my former life. I became a prisoner of legal battles engineered by Daniel's well-funded team. Every courtroom session drained more of my savings and tarnished my reputation. Once celebrated as a visionary, I was now painted as a naive old man, gullible for having trusted someone who turned out to be a traitor. In the midst of my despair, I found refuge at the modest home of Martha, my late wife's best friend, and the one person who never faltered in her belief in me. "Walter," Martha would say gently over our afternoon tea, "you must remember that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. You may have lost your company, but you haven't lost yourself." Her words, though kind, could not mend the fractures inside me. I was adrift, desperate for justice. I refused to let Daniel's betrayal be the final chapter of my story. I resolved that I would not battle him in the courtroom where the odds were stacked against me. Instead, I would wage a war on his empire, a war fought in shadows and whispers. And for that, I needed an ally who had suffered at his hands before. I recalled a name from the past, Blake Monroe. Once Daniel's trusted associate, Blake had been ruthlessly discarded after a shady real estate deal left him penniless and bitter. Tracking him down was not easy. After weeks of discreet inquiries and digging through old records, I found him living in a dilapidated apartment on the outskirts of the city. His face, lined with both time and sorrow, reflected a life marred by betrayal. "Daniel took everything from me," Blake told me as we sat in his cramped living room, the air heavy with regret. "I lost my home, my reputation, my sense of self. I've been waiting for a chance to settle the score." I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Then help me make him pay. I want him to understand the pain he's inflicted, not just on me, but on everyone who trusted him." Blake's eyes narrowed as he considered my proposal. "If we're doing this, we go all in. There's no turning back." "All in," I replied without hesitations. Thus began our covert campaign against Daniel Scott. With Blake's insider knowledge and my own determination, we devised a plan to dismantle his empire piece by piece. Our first target was his financial network. Blake revealed a labyrinth of offshore accounts that Daniel had meticulously constructed to hide his ill-gotten gains. We compiled every shred of evidence and anonymously tipped off the authorities. Within weeks, tax audits and financial probes began to unravel the intricate web of deceit Daniel had spun. Next, we turned to his public image. Daniel had always prided himself on a facade of benevolence. He had built a reputation through lavish charity galas, public speeches, and generous donations. But behind the polished veneer lay a man who exploited every opportunity to amass wealth and power at the expense of others. We collected testimonies from former employees, leaked confidential emails, and amassed video recordings that captured his unguarded moments. Slowly, the media began to piece together the truth, painting Daniel not as the savior he pretended to be, but as a ruthless opportunist. I remember the day the first headline broke, "Hayes Industries Scandal, Betrayal at the Top." I sat alone in a small diner, the clatter of dishes and murmurs of other patrons fading into the background as I read the article. It was a bittersweet victory, a validation of my pain and the beginning of Daniel's downfall. Yet I knew that simply tearing down his empire would not be enough. I needed him to feel the sting of betrayal as sharply as I had. And so, I planned my final act, a public reckoning that would leave no room for denial. The stage was set for the annual Hayes Industries Gala, a glittering event that once epitomized the triumphs of our shared past. This year, however, it would serve as the arena for Daniel's ultimate undoing. I infiltrated the gala disguised as one of the waiters. Beneath my modest uniform, I carried a small device loaded with every piece of damning evidence Blake and I had gathered, confidential recordings, emails, and video clips that exposed the true nature of Daniel's machinations. As the evening unfolded, the ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and the soft hum of conversations. Daniel took to the stage, his smile fixed and his tone persuasive as he announced a bold new future for Hayes Industries. But I knew that this carefully crafted image was about to crumble. At the precise moment when Daniel's speech reached its crescendo, I connected my device to the gala's central system. Suddenly, every screen in the hall flickered to life, displaying footage that captured Daniel's hidden moments, A montage of him laughing maliciously, dismissing our loyal employees, and bragging about how effortlessly he had swindled me out of everything I held dear. A shocked silence fell over the audience. Phones were raised, recording every incriminating detail. Seizing the moment, I stepped forward and addressed the crowd through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you witnessed the truth. This is the man who betrayed me, a friend who stole my life away. Let his actions speak for themselves." Pandemonium erupted. Security scrambled to seize control, but the evidence had already been unleashed into the digital world, where it spread like wildfire. Within hours, news outlets across the country reported on the scandal. The board of directors, stunned and outraged, had no choice but to force Daniel from his position. Investigations began, and his ill-gotten assets were swiftly frozen. However, the climax of our crusade was yet to come. A few nights after the gala, I received an ominous call from an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered, and Daniel's voice, bitter and venomous, cut through the silence. "Walter, you think you've won, but you know nothing of the consequences," he hissed. Despite the chaos surrounding him, he still clung to his arrogance. He demanded a meeting in a desolate parking lot on the outskirts of the city, a final confrontation in the shadows. Under a cold, starless sky, I arrived to find Daniel leaning against a sleek black car, his eyes smoldering with a mix of rage and despair. "Walter," he spat, "you ruined me." His voice cracked as he added, I trusted you, and you betrayed me back." For a fleeting moment, I saw the ghost of the friend I once knew, but then that expression hardened, and without warning, he lunged. The ensuing struggle was a blur of shouts and desperate movements. In the chaos, a single gunshot rang out. Time seemed to slow as Daniel staggered back, shock and disbelief contorting his features. Out of the darkness emerged Blake, his face a portrait of sorrow and resolve as he held a smoking gun. "Blake, what have you done?" I cried out, torn between shock and a grim sense of inevitability. Blake's voice was quiet, heavy with regret. "Walter, some debts must be paid in full. There was no other way to settle the score." With that, Daniel collapsed, his eyes glassy as he sank into the cold asphalt, his reign of treachery finally coming to an end. In the aftermath of that night, as the police arrived and Blake surrendered without resistance, I found myself standing amid the ruins of my past. The media exploded with headlines about the downfall of Daniel Scott, a man who had built his empire on lies and betrayal. I became a reluctant symbol of caution, a man who had trusted too freely and paid the ultimate price. I retreated to Martha's quiet home, where the ticking of an old clock reminded me that time marches on, even as trust is shattered beyond repair. Martha's gentle words resonated. "Walter, the scars will never fade, but they remind us of the lessons we must never forget." I spent long days and sleepless nights poring over memories and writing down every detail of my journey, not as a chronicle of revenge, but as a testimony to the fragility of trust. I hope that someday someone might learn from my pain and guard their heart more wisely. Even as I continue to live with the heavy burden of betrayal, I've come to understand that life is a tapestry woven with threads of joy and sorrow, loyalty and deceit. The wounds remain, a constant reminder that even the most cherished bonds can be broken by greed and ambition. Now, when I speak to anyone who asks about the loss of my legacy, I say this: true strength is not measured by the power you hold, but by the integrity you maintain even when trust is shattered. Every new friendship, every kind smile is weighed against the memory of Daniel's betrayal, a memory that serves as both a warning and a lesson. I am Walter Hayes. I built an empire only to have it stolen by the one I called a friend. I fought back, not in the halls of a courtroom, but in a battle of truth and justice that exposed the darkness behind every smiling face. And though I now walk through life with scars that remind me of that fateful day, I also walk with a newfound understanding of the value of honesty. Let my story be a beacon for all who trust too readily. Remember, beneath every warm greeting may lie a hidden dagger waiting to strike. Guard your heart, for once it is betrayed, the path to healing is steep and treacherous. This is my story. A story of love, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of truth in a world where loyalty is as fragile as glass. Learn from my mistakes and never let the allure of blind trust cloud your judgment. For in the end, even the strongest bonds can be broken, leaving behind a legacy of pain that no amount of time can entirely heal.